April 11, 2025, a quiet night in a Florida neighborhood. The streets are calm, the air is still, and nothing seems out of place. But within moments, a routine call to police will turn into a confrontation that raises serious questions about rights, authority, and how quickly a situation can escalate. It begins with a report. Someone calls law enforcement, claiming they saw suspicious individuals near a home, possibly looking inside, maybe even attempting something more. There's no confirmed crime, no clear description of any suspect, just uncertainty and concern. But for responding deputies, that's enough to investigate. When officers arrive, they quickly notice two people walking nearby. A man and a woman moving at a normal pace, showing no signs of panic, no attempt to run, no obvious wrongdoing. At the same time, another individual is already at the scene, holding a camera and recording everything as it unfolds. What happens next will be captured from multiple angles, and later, viewed by thousands. The officers approach the couple and begin asking questions. Where are you coming from? Do you live around here? The tone is calm at first, almost routine. The couple answers politely, explaining they're simply out for a walk. They haven't been near any house, haven't done anything suspicious. Just walking, trying to pass time on a restless night. But even without clear evidence, the situation begins to shift. The officers explain that they received a call about possible suspicious activity nearby. Because of that, they say they need to figure out who these individuals are and what's going on. And then, a key moment happens. The officers tell them they are being detained. Not arrested, but not free to leave either. In that instant, the dynamic changes. What started as a casual interaction becomes something more serious. The individuals are now under investigation, simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then comes the request that often defines encounters like this. Identification. The officers ask for ID. One of the individuals responds calmly. He offers to provide his name, his date of birth, but he hesitates when it comes to handing over physical identification. He questions whether it's necessary. His tone isn't aggressive, it isn't confrontational, it's controlled, measured, and firm. But the officers don't see it that way. They insist. They tell him that failing to identify himself could lead to arrest. The man pushes back, not with anger, but with confidence. He believes he understands his rights. He believes he is not required to identify himself under these circumstances. And that's where everything begins to escalate. The conversation turns into a quiet standoff. No shouting, no sudden movements, just a growing tension between authority and resistance. The officers repeat their demands. The man continues to refuse. Seconds feel longer. The air feels heavier. And then, a decision is made. The man is placed in handcuffs. He's under arrest. Not for theft. Not for violence, but for refusing to identify himself during what officers claim is an investigation. Even then, the situation doesn't spiral out of control. The man remains calm. He doesn't resist physically. He doesn't attempt to flee. He allows the process to unfold, even as he disagrees with it. But what happens next is what truly makes this incident stand out. As officers attempt to obtain his fingerprints, the tone shifts again, this time into something far more serious. A statement is made that shocks those watching, a threat, direct and unmistakable, suggesting that force could be used to get compliance. It's the kind of moment that changes everything. Because now, the question isn't just about identification anymore. It's about how far authority can go, and what limits exist when someone refuses to comply. Despite the pressure, the man stays composed. He doesn't escalate. He doesn't react with violence. He holds his position verbally, but physically, he allows the situation to continue. Eventually, as it becomes clear that he's being taken into custody no matter what, he complies to the extent necessary. Meanwhile, the other individuals at the scene are cleared. They're allowed to leave. No charges. No further questions. Just a simple release and an apology for the inconvenience. And that contrast raises an important question. If they were free to go, why wasn't he? The answer may lie in a complex legal issue that often comes up in situations like this. Under the law, officers need what's known as reasonable suspicion to detain someone. Not just a feeling, not just a guess, but specific, objective facts that suggest a person is involved in criminal activity. In this case, there was no detailed suspect description. No behavior indicating a crime was taking place. No attempt to run or hide. Just proximity to a location where something might have happened. And proximity alone is often not enough. That's where the legal debate begins, because if the detention itself wasn't justified, then everything that followed becomes questionable. The demand for identification, the arrest, even the use or threat of force, all of it depends on that initial moment. After the arrest, the man is charged with obstruction. A serious accusation, one that suggests he interfered with law enforcement duties. But whether that charge holds up in court will depend on one critical factor: whether the officers were acting within the bounds of the law from the very beginning. As of now, the case is still ongoing. A trial is expected, where both sides will present their arguments. Evidence will be reviewed. Actions will be analyzed. And ultimately, a decision will be made about what really happened that night, and whether it crossed a legal line. But beyond the courtroom, this incident represents something bigger. It shows how quickly an ordinary moment can turn into a legal conflict. How a simple walk can become a detention. How a question can become a command, and a refusal can become an arrest. It also highlights the importance of understanding rights, not just for citizens, but for those enforcing the law. Because in situations like this, the line between lawful authority and overreach can become very thin. And once that line is crossed, the consequences can last far beyond a single night. In the end, one man chose to stand on what he believed were his rights. The officers chose to act on what they believed was their authority. Now, it's up to the legal system to decide who was right. And as that decision approaches, one thing remains clear: moments like these don't just tell a story. They start a conversation. A conversation about freedom, accountability, and where the limits should be drawn.